Here with a couple of core folks from the team that were involved in the interesting release that you're going to hear about today. To begin with, could you introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Dan, and I'm mostly on the gadgets team actually, but I contributed the Picasso Web Albums API to the release.
And I'm Ryan. I contributed the YouTube extension for the Zend data component.
And I'm Jeff. I wrote the doc list part of the library.
Cool. So what is this release actually all about?
So this is the release of the Zend Framework version 1.0.3. And as part of the Zend Framework, we have a GData component, which is a PHP client library to access GData services. This component's been around for a bit, but we just recently added extensions for YouTube, Picasso Web Albums, and DocList.
Cool. So what does the client library actually really provide you here, provide developers?
Basically, it's a set of convenience functionality that allows you to more easily access GData APIs. At their heart, GData APIs are all just raw XML and normal HTTP requests that you can use using any sort of programming technology. But the client libraries allow you to access it a bit easier by providing some convenience methods for retrieving different types of feeds or for uploading media content, which is the case like the DocList extension, and also provide ways to easily query GData services. So it's just convenience classes. There's some data model stuff that allows you to access each of the bits of data that you get back from the services in kind of a normal object-oriented way that you'd be used to. But all in all, you can actually access all these services without the client library if you want. We just try to make it easier.
So if you're a PHP developer, you can choose download the Zend framework or write your own classes to hit the GData URLs and stuff yourself.
Yeah, you could write your own classes that use some of the extensions that are built into PHP, such as the curl extension or libcurl extension, and like simple XML, or you could use the client library that we provide. And I just want to stress too that it's available as part of the whole Zend Framework distribution, but we actually do have a separate distribution that just has the Zend GData component and some of the small amount of classes that it depends on from the rest of the framework. So you can either download the whole thing that includes all the other functionality of the Zend Framework, which they're well known for things like their MVC framework and such, but have lots of other useful components in there, or you can just download the GData stuff.
So yeah, for people who aren't familiar with the Zend framework, like what actually is that? Like why would PHP developers want to use that? Is that competing with some of the other like Rails-like clones on the PHP side, or how does that all fit together?
It's basically a collection of loosely coupled components that allow you to do various functionality, everything that really, when you're writing a web application, you could want to do. It is most widely known for its MVC model, but other things such as the web services components, of which GData is a part of, can be done as well. We use the Zend framework in the GData classes to provide things like exception handling, to use their HTTP client, which they already wrap up, to allow for regular HTTP connections or proxied HTTP connections, all that sort of code which we didn't really want to have to write. So.
Cool. So are there any limitations or drawbacks to using this library?
Well, the Zend GData component does take all the data that comes back from the GData services and parses them into a data model. So, one possible limitation could be is it's a little bit large memory consumption when it comes back to construct all those the different data models. We basically construct one object for every XML element. So in that case, yeah, that could be a limitation. We're kind of working on ways to enable developers to use some of the convenience functionality that are available in the service and query classes and such, while not using the data model. And we hope that allows it to be used by a broader audience. But the data model provides really handy functionality that you don't really have to know what the XML structure is to access the data that comes back from services. So we'll show you some examples a little bit later, but really, you can access it like any sort of API that you're used to writing in an object-oriented language. You can ignore the idea that there's XML and HTTP around there. We handle that all for you.
Cool. So Jeff, you said you worked on the docklist API. Can you explain what the docklist API is itself?
Right. So if you're familiar with Google Documents, you know it's a place where you can work on word processing documents or spreadsheets or presentations, and your data is stored online. People can collaborate in real time. You can have multiple people editing the same document. And so the Documents List API is a way to take existing files on your computer at home and upload them to Google Documents. And so it will convert all kinds of files into a Google document, things like just text files or Word documents or Excel spreadsheets, CSV files, PowerPoint presentations, the list goes on. So the main idea is, you have this programmatic way of sending a document over HTTP. It gets converted into a Google document. Then you can also query a feed which lists all of your documents. So you can search for documents which contain specific text and get other metadata about your documents. So that was really the idea behind that library. And with the PHP extension, we're making that process a lot easier. There's just it just takes a few method calls to upload a document.
Cool. So docklist for me, when I first thought of it, was Objective-C library, Java library, doing it from a rich client. PHP is mainly web stuff. So the use cases here, like I've got a CMS or something, and I want to integrate with Google Docs.
Right.
Is that the kind of thing where you see developers using this with PHP?
Yeah, so the example that we wrote actually was written to exercise some of the functionality we provided, and one of the things that's in there is uploading a file. So part of the idea was that you could allow people to manage their Google Documents through a new interface. So you could have people upload their file to your server and then send that off to Google Documents. So it could be actually, you could use Google as your storage for people's files, your users' files. Yeah.
Cool, let's check that out.
All right, take a look at the demo. So this is the Document List API demo. This is packaged with the Zend Framework download, so you could load this on your server and try it out. But it's a fairly simple demo. There's the Docklist API is a fairly simple and straightforward one. We've got a few main things to start out with. You can list your documents, you can query for documents that contain specific text, or you can upload a new document. So if we look at the list documents sample, we have some options here. There's retrieving a list of all your Google Documents, word processing documents, spreadsheets. So these two examples down here illustrate category queries. So you can query Google Documents for a list of everything that's a word processing document or spreadsheet or presentation, although I didn't put the presentations in this demo yet because that's a fairly recent release. So to see an example of sort of what we're doing when we do a category query, we'll look at this here. This is the documentation on code.google.com for the Document List API. So we can see if we are looking at a list of documents, we go to a URL like this and we get this XML back. So this is all things that the Zend Framework library hides from you. So from where you're concerned, it's as simple as clicking here and you'll get a list of your documents. If we go back, we can look for just the word processing documents, for example. And these are also links to these documents. So if I were to click on these links, we would open it up in Google Documents. So we'll go back. The thing I really wanted to show was how to upload a new document. So this will take an existing file off of your computer and create a Google document or Google spreadsheet or presentation. So we'll choose a file. Here we have an example document here. And we can upload it. And this will actually send that file to the server. The server will convert it into a Google document and send us back an Atom entry that represents that document with the link to the content. Alright, so you can see that we've uploaded the document, and it shows us a link with the title of the document. So if we click on this, we actually go into Google Documents, and here's the contents of our document that we've just uploaded. So let's take a look and see how this works. When I click that button, what gets called is this upload document function here. So with this, we take in the document object, which is a client that talks to the Google Documents server, and we have an original file and a temporary file. Since this is running on a remote server, I used a file post to send the file to the server, and so that gets saved as a temporary file. But the way I've written this method is it looks at the file name to determine what the MIME type is of the data that is being sent. So basically, the MIME type is how the server knows that it should interpret this data as a Word document as opposed to a TSV, CSV file, or text file, or any other of the many file types that it supports. So if we look through here, there's some things for printing out the result. But this is the real meat of it right here is we make a call to the doc service to upload the file. And we just give it the name of the file, the location. We leave out the MIME type because we're letting it figure out the MIME type from the file name. And then we tell it what URL to post to. And that's all there is to it, really. The library has abstracted a lot of the difficulty of uploading a document, which if we scroll down here in the documentation looks a little bit like this here. So we send all the data that we need and get a response back with a new document. So that's pretty much all there is to it.
So Daniel, you said that you're part of the gadgets team, but you contributed the Picasa side of the code here. What exactly did you do there, and how does it fit together?
Right, so if you're familiar with Picasa, it's basically a way to upload and organize and collect all the photos that you've taken. And the Picasa Web Items API in the Zend Framework basically allows you to programmatically do all the things that you would do through the web browser. So there's helper methods for adding new albums, adding new photos, commenting, tagging, all the things that you'd expect in like a fully featured album manager, basically. And so what we really wanted to do was basically allow people to design their own interfaces or integrate Picasa into their own applications, and the API allows you to do that. There's really simple ways to do most of the functions that you'd want, and if you want to do something that's a little more complex, you have all of the access to all the elements that are in the XML as well.
Okay, let's check out the example that you have.
Sounds good.
So this is the Picasa Web Album sample application, and I've already logged in, and you can see that we're presented with a list of options for browsing photos that are on the Picasa service. And so we're going to start out by looking at the feed of the logged in user. And when we do that, we see that there are a bunch of albums that have been uploaded already, and we're presented with the ability to add a new album, and we can also look at the photos in the existing albums, so we'll do that. When we're in here, we can see that we have individual entries for all of the photos, and if we click on one of the photos, again, we're presented with comments and tags if there are any, and we have the ability to add comments and tags to the existing photos. If we go back, we can see at the bottom that it's also very easy to upload a new photo, and we can delete any of the photos that are in the album. So if we want to look at some of the code for this, it's very simple to do. There are helper methods for all of this in the sample application. So right now we're looking at the function to add a photo, which basically takes the authenticated client, the the username and the album that you'd like to add the photo to, and then the photo itself. And we have media classes which handle all the uploading of the files, and then the inserting the photo into the actual album. And if you want to add an album, we can look at adding album, which is also very simple. Just a few lines of code. Basically, we take the authenticated client again, create a new album entry with the specified name, and do error checking.
And back to you, Ryan. You wrote the YouTube example. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, basically YouTube has an API, it's currently a read-only API, that allows you to access the vast library of video content that YouTube stores. So you can do things like retrieving the list of videos that you've uploaded, retrieving your own playlists or subscription feeds or comments, and basically access all the data that is used to display the YouTube site.
Cool, let's check that out.
Cool.
So here's a simple little sample app demonstrating the use of the YouTube Data API within the PHP client library. So what this allows you to do is search either all videos or several of the different standard feeds, such as top rated, most viewed, or recently featured videos. And after you search them and you get the results, you can click on a thumbnail for the video here, and it retrieves the embed URL, the Swift URL, in order to play it inside a Flash player and play the YouTube video. It also shows here that you can retrieve a bunch of the metadata about the video, such as the title, description, author, the various tags that are used to describe the video, and even link off to YouTube. I also demonstrate here retrieving the thumbnails for various related videos. So Google gives you a feed of related videos for each of the YouTube videos, and I retrieved them here and looked at the various thumbnails.
If I'm a developer and I want to get involved here, how can I kind of join this community?
So Zend Framework is an open source project. We have a mailing list that's accessible on Zend's site, and you can ping the mailing list and let people know that you want to get involved. And we maintain a list of bugs and feature requests and all, which is on framework.zend.com. And you can start working on the things that are available to do, and feel free to share your own suggestions to the Zend Framework community.
Cool. Thanks a lot for the release, guys.